Welcome to day 8 for chapter 5, which is section 3, solving quadratic equations by factoring. So today's video, we're not actually going to do the solving part, we're just going to do the factoring part. So today's video is no calculator, it's just going to be a review of factoring. First, we're going to review the 3 factoring methods that we did in the first video of the chapter, day 0. And then I'm going to introduce a 4th method. So the first 3 methods that we learned were GCF, greatest common factor, product sum, and then difference of squares. Starting with GCF. Remember that GCF is the greatest common factor. So looking at my 2 terms, my 6x cubed y minus 9xy to the 4th. 6 and 9 have a 3 in common. I have x cubed, and then the second term has an x. Remember, you can only factor out the lowest one. And then I have y and y to the 4th. The lowest is a y, so that's what I can factor out. Now what's left? Looking at my first term, 6 divided by 3 is 2. X cubed divided by x is x squared. Y divided by y is 1, so I just leave it. Now looking at my second term, 9 divided by 3 is 3. X divided by x is 1. So that 1 I don't have to write. And then y to the 4th, take away a y is y to the 3rd. So really that's what you have to do when you're factoring. Is you have to think about dividing that factor out. So if I took my 2 terms and I divided out my GCF, what would I be left with? So that is your answer. Remember that you can check your answer by distributing that 3xy, and you should end up with what we started with. Right now, pause the video and you try the next one, please. Okay, let's see how you did. You should have noticed between 12 and 2 that 2 is my greatest common factor. My first term has an m, but the second one does not, so I cannot factor out any m's. I can factor out an n, though, from the second term. Second term has an n. The first has n squared, but I can only factor out the highest, which would be an n. I'm then left with 6mn plus 1. Please make sure you remembered that plus 1. That plus 1 acts as a placeholder, so that when I distribute the 2n, I end up with a 2n. So when I distribute this 2n to this 1, I'm going to end up with the 2n that I started with. So you have to remember that 1. Again, it's always a good idea to check your answer by multiplying back out. Okay, product sum. Remember for product sum that you are looking for 2 numbers whose product is the last term and whose sum is the middle term. So in this case, 2 numbers that multiply to 15 and add to be negative 16. You can probably figure out that that's x minus 15 and x minus 1. Negative 15 and negative 1 are going to multiply to positive 15 and add to negative 16. Okay, you try the next one real quick. Pause the video. Factor the next example, please. Okay, so you were looking for 2 numbers that multiplied to negative 72 and added to be positive 1. That should have been positive 9 and negative 8. Okay, and then the last factoring method we had was the difference of squares. So this is when you have 2 terms that are perfect squares and you have their difference, so you're subtracting them. In the first case, 4x squared minus 25, this is 2x squared minus 5 squared. Now this factors into 2 sets of parentheses. They both have the 2x and the 5. One is subtracting and one is adding. Okay, last time, pause the video and you try the next one, please. Okay, let's see how we did. 25x to the 4th is 5x squared squared. 16y squared is 4y squared. So Both factors are going to have the 5x squared and the 4y. One is going to be adding and one is going to be subtracting. Now, I neglected to mention before, it does not matter if you put the addition first or second. So the addition can be in the first set of parentheses or the second set of parentheses. Either way is correct. So that was supposed to be a quick review of the factoring that we've already learned. If I went too quickly, please make sure that you rewind and rewatch the parts that you need to. If you're solid on this, let's move on. So the next factoring that we are doing is called split the middle. So I'm going to take a minute to zoom in a little bit. So sorry if it ends up being a little wonky. Okay, so split the middle, you always have to do when you have a coefficient in front of the x squared that's not a 1. So the product sum that we did before, up above, we always had 1x squared, 1x squared, 1x squared. Anytime that you don't have a 1, you have to do split the middle. So you're going to start by multiplying the first and the last term. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Now it's similar to the product sum. I'm looking for two numbers whose product is negative 12 and whose sum is negative 11, this number in the middle. Now you should be able to tell that those numbers are negative 12 and positive 1. Negative 12 and positive 1 multiply to negative 12, and they add to negative 11. Now here's what's different again. I'm going to rewrite my problem, keeping the first and the last term the same. I'm going to split the middle term though. Instead of writing negative 11x, I'm going to write in terms of two terms. I'm going to write negative 12x and positive 1x. So all I did was rewrite negative 11x. Negative 11x is the same as negative 12x plus 1x. Now I'm going to split down the middle and factor both sides. On the left side, I have a GCF of 3x. When I factor that out, I'm left with x minus 4. On the right side, the 1x minus 4, there's nothing really I can factor out except a 1, and I'm still left with x minus 4. At this point, your two sets of parentheses should match. If they don't, then you did something wrong. Now I have one more step, and that's the final factoring. Now, the parentheses that are repeated become one factor. So that's that x minus 4 is the one that's repeated. The other factor comes from what you factored out. So in this case, 3x plus 1. So this is your final factored form. Now, of course, it's a good idea to check your answer. So we're going to do that. So we have x minus 4 and 3x plus 1. 3x times x is going to give me 3x squared. 1 times x is 1x. 3x times negative 4 is negative 12x. And 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Combining like terms, this becomes 3x squared minus 11x minus 4, which is what we started with. Now this is something that you probably covered last year in geometry and possibly in Algebra 1, so this should look familiar. Right now, I want you to attempt the next one. So I want you to try this problem right here. Pause the video and try it on your own. I know that we've only done one example together, but you should remember this. If you don't, that's okay, we're going to go over it. So pause the video, try it on your own, and come back when you're done, please. Okay, let's see how we did. Now, because we have 6y squared instead of just y squared, we have to split the middle. You're going to multiply 6 and 20 to get 120. Now, you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 120 and add to negative 23. Okay, I can't do this off the top of my head, so let's start writing down factors. 120 is 1 times 220, 2 times 60, 3 times 40, we're getting closer, 4 times 30, even better, 5 times 24, 6 times 20, 7 doesn't go in. I have 8 and 15. Okay, and that's where I'm going to stop. 8 and 15, similar to 23, negative 23. Negative 8 times negative 15 will give me 120, and negative 8 add negative 15 will give me negative 23. Now, at this point, it's really tempting to do y minus 8, y minus 15, but that's not the case. Remember that these two numbers are used to rewrite that middle term. So I have 6y squared, and I have positive 20. Instead of writing negative 23y, I'm going to write negative 8y minus 15y. And you could do the other order too. You could have negative 15 before negative 8. I just chose to put negative 8 first. Now, we're going to put a line down the middle and factor both sides. On the left side, my GCF is 2y, and I'm left with 3y minus 4. On my right side, I'm going to take out a 5, and I'm left with negative 3y plus 4. Okay, at this point, I run into a problem. These parentheses were supposed to match, and they don't. They have the same numbers, but different signs. Now, what I should have done is factor out a negative 5 from the first term. If I do that, this becomes positive 3y and negative 4. So anytime that your signs are wrong, you probably need to factor out a negative that you didn't account for. Now, I'm almost done. 3y minus 4 is the factor that was repeated. Outside of that is the 2y and negative 5, so 2y minus 5 becomes my next term. Hopefully that went well for you. If not, that's okay. You have a few more problems that we're going to practice with. Moving on to the next one. This one gets a little bit more difficult. Now the issue with this one is that you're going to notice every term has an x. Well, that means we can factor out a GCF. So every term has an x, so I'm going to factor out an x. Now what I'm also going to do is factor out a negative. I don't like having a negative to start off with. So for my first term, I don't like to have a negative coefficient on the first term. So I'm going to factor out a negative x. I'm left with 2x squared minus 21x plus 27. Because remember, that switches all the signs. Now I'm ready to split the middle with this second term. I'm going to multiply 2 and 27 and I get 54. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 54 and add to be negative 21. Now mind you, this x I'm just ignoring for right now. I factored it out, but I don't need it in order to split the middle. Okay, so let's start thinking of factors. 54 is 1 and 54, 2 and 27, 3 and 18, and bingo, that gives it to be. Negative 3 and negative 18 will multiply to 54 and add to be negative 21. So my 2x squared comes down, my positive 27 comes down. This negative 21x is going to be split into negative 3 and negative 18. So I have negative 3x, I have negative 18x. Now I put my line down the middle and I factor both sides. On the left side, all I can take out is an x, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. On the right side, I have negative 18 and positive 27, so I'm going to factor out a negative 9. This leaves me with 2x minus 3. At this point, I know I'm on the right track because my two parentheses match. So the first factor becomes 2x minus 3. Second factor becomes what I factored out, so x minus 9. So this is my final answer. And then, I forgot, we have to write out that negative x that was in front. So that's the negative x I factored out in the beginning. Now, it's always a good idea to check your answer, so let's check our answer. I'm going to start by multiplying my two binomials. So I have 2x minus 3, and I have x minus 9. This becomes 2x squared minus 3x minus 18x plus 27. So I still have that negative x. Combining like terms, this becomes 2x squared minus 21x plus 27. When I multiply that negative x in, this becomes negative 2x cubed plus 21x squared minus 27x, which is what we started with. So I told you earlier in the video, it's always going to help if you look for the GCF first, and then it's going to make your life a lot easier. So any factoring problem that you do, you always need to look for a GCF. So that's going to help you on this next one. This is your last problem that you are doing for this video. It's no calculator. It's going to help your life a lot if you take out a GCF first. So pause the video right now. Try this one on your own, please. Come back when you are finished. Okay, let's see how we did. If you factored correctly, you should have gotten negative 2 times 2x minus 3 times 6x plus 5. And again, you could reverse the order of those two binomials. So this order could be reversed. If you didn't, you made a mistake. If you made a mistake, go back and find that mistake. When you come to class tomorrow, you're going to be doing some more review with factoring.